Hi, welcome. This episode, Prophecy for the Last Hour. My name is Liz McGee, and we're really going to go down the rabbit hole today. I have, I didn't record anything last week. It's summertime, and I've been enjoying a few family and different things, but also just sort of a little dry season. I kind of got a little lost. I was like, I have all this understanding, what do I do with all this and what's the point? And I guess I got a little in my soul, in my mind, a little like, oh my gosh, I think I'm lost. But anyways, I once was lost, but now I'm found. Praise Yahweh. Well, I won't even go into all the backdrop. It's fine. Today's a great day. Praise Yahweh. There's a verse. I'm reading again the book Second Esdras. All right. This is one of my favorite books. It is highly apocryphal. I love it. It is so full of arcane symbols. The words are used in some really sod level understandings. It is one of what they call an apocryphal text. It's in the Deuterocanonical books of the Catholic Bible, and it was in the King James. It is definitely, considered scripture, but people, and I'm not going to go into a lot of this stuff, but it is apocryphal scripture, which means you have to have the keys in which to truly decode it. But there's plenty of information in it still that's good at the first level of understanding. But in the rabbit trail, in chapter 5, in verse 22, now let me also say this. You go to the scholars, quote unquote, they don't know, they'll say they don't know who wrote Second Esdras. You'll find all sorts of opinions. Whatever. Esdras represents Ezra. It's a pseudographic work. It is written under the pseudonym of the great prophet Ezra, Nehemiah, who I've also read, and they think it's the same person. And Ezra was at the Second Temple period. When they had come back from Babylon, he was the strong leader. He was like the Moses of the time, to bring the people back into focus, bring them back their Torah, recenter them around the new temple worship, kind of correct the genealogy. I mean, there's so much information if you decide to ever go into the extra biblical texts that we have, especially Jewish sources, that will give us a lot of information on Ezra. Be that as it may, whoever wrote Second Esdras, which is known as Fourth Ezra, we won't even go into it. I think they deliberately try to confuse people to get them to just, like I did, I was like, okay, whatever, I'll never figure this out. But it's because it's not for the faint of heart. You really do have to persevere. And it is built precept by precept. So anyways, whoever wrote that, they were so highly initiated. Now, can I say that without, you getting all upset? This is a biblical word. I've been through this. Initiated means just the level of understanding. And I'm going to start with, first of all, the word understanding. And it says here in the verse, then my soul recovered the spirit of understanding. All right. One of the names for Yahweh, God, Elohim, is understanding. Wisdom and understanding. Get wisdom, get understanding. So there is a specific meaning for the word understanding, and it is the Hebrew word bina. It is part of the highest sepharith of Elohim in the whole concept of the tree of life, and it is the upper Trinity. A lot of times when Christians think that they discovered, the Trinity, they didn't discover it. It's as ancient as Abraham. It's as ancient as Adam, actually. they were just part of a unveiling, a revelation, which means an unveiling of an apocalypse of understanding. The upper, because you got to understand, I'm trying to stay linear, but I feel like I have to bring people in. We are living in what is technically termed the 2 days. It's technically termed the 2 days. After Messiah ben Joseph, before Messiah ben David, and the total wrap-up, so to speak, we're in these quote-unquote 2 days, which is the time of the Gentiles. This is the time when Yeshua is quote-unquote walking through the earth, calling out of the nations all his people that got lost. The lost tribes got lost in there. They're all mixed in. And anybody else who wants to come and follow him. All right. This is a very prophetic, a very specific window of time with a very specific goal. And it's happening. It's been happening for 2,000 years, and we're at the end of it. All right. So what I'm going to title this teaching today is called Times and Seasons. How do you make sense of the times and seasons? Anybody? And don't think I have any real hard and fast for all the answers. I'm just going to walk you through my level of my spirit of understanding to date. But be that as it may. So we have in Hosea, he talks about in 2 days, for 2 days, he's going to revive, or he's going to, out of the nations, he's going to call them out and revive them, give them back a new heart and a new spirit, graft them and give them the new birth, plug them back in to L'chaim, life, the tree of life. And then on the 3rd day, he is going to restore them. And this is, so I've talked about 2 days, now I'm talking about the 3rd day, but in the bigger context, we're talking in the typography of a week, of 7 days. So you got to do the math. You got to keep track of where you are. We've done, at the time of Yeshua, they'd already done 4 days, 4,000 years of human history. Yeshua, the first coming, 2 more days. And then a 3rd day was going to be ushered in, and there was going to be another 1,000 years. Day of the Lord is 1,000 years. This is all established Hebraic theology, the way you're supposed to rightly divide. It's called, you have to rightly divide the word. You got to divide the times and seasons correctly. You got to get your numbers straight. You got to understand where you are. A 3 is not a 7. I mean, this is first grade level understanding. When the little kid goes to kindergarten, he's taught his numbers. A 1 is a 1, a 2 is a 2, a 3 is a 3. Now, that brings me to the point of talking about now. Again, the spirit of understanding to set the larger backdrop in the times of the season. So we're at the end of 6 days. We're at the end of 6,000 technical years. And we are entering in the last day, the 3rd day, if you're counting from Yeshua. And there's going to be a change. All the scriptures indicate this last day, which is the Shabbat day, another Shabbat Shalom to you, is a day of rest. It's a day very different from the other 6. This is also very much in the whole theology, the way the archetypes and the words are used and presented to us. We have a day, a special day, a day of rest from your labors. Well, what could that be referring to? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to try it, and this is my thing, because part of this was triggered by my husband who watched a YouTube, and this is going on crazy today. Everybody is out there trying to figure out what Jubilee, what day we're in, when this thing is going to wrap. All the times, all the date setters are out in full array. Okay, now my opinion on that, and let me just state that right up front. I guess I was going to say it later. I'll say it now. The scriptures are very clear. Yeshua was very clear. He said, look, when they asked him, what will be the sign of your coming? They obviously, these are his inner circle disciples asking him this question. So let's just do the logical deductions here. So these are believers in him, obviously, as the Messiah, the Son of Man, Son of Elohim, right? And they want to know, what is the sign of your coming? So they weren't referring to his first coming, because they obviously knew he had just come. They're referring to this end of the age, this day at the third day, that day. What will be the sign of that coming at the end of the age? All right? So that's the context. And he said, well, you know, there'll be all these signs. And he listed a bunch of things. And he said, you will know the season. If you're paying attention, which is what we're supposed to do, you will know the season. And he goes on with these parables. And he says, look at the fig tree, you know, when it buds and it gives off fruit, you know it's summer. You know you're in the season of harvest. That's an indicator. And so a lot of these signs that we're seeing, but this is the whole point. To know the season, it doesn't take a lot of rocket science to say that winter is not summer. If you're really paying attention to the seasons, it's not hard to figure out when fruit blooms and you come up with a harvest. And we're at the end of August here, and it's definitely becoming really big harvest time. That is the analogy for the end of the age when we see the signs. So he's very clear that the elect living who are alive and remain unto his coming in that last generation at this end of this age, the 6 days before this special 7th day begins, are going to be able to know they're in that season. And I feel this way. All my life I felt this way. I know tons of people. So let's not play stupid elect saint, all right? The question is, even Yeshua said, you're not going to know the day or the hour. And this is where it breaks down a little bit. And the reason being, and I don't think it's, he said, only my Father in heaven knows. And I've said this before, because I mean, seriously, that particular detail is probably the most important intel in the whole cosmos and all of its universes. Because if Satan could know the day or the hour, you know, it's like D-Day. I am sure with all the spies, the Germans, they knew that we were amassing, you know, troops and things on Normandy. We were getting ready for a major assault. It's not hard to sometimes see, you know, watch your enemy and see that something is going on. Something's getting ready to happen. What you want to protect is the intel. You want the surprise, so that it's a surprise, all right? And this is what Yeshua is saying. Look at, I'm not letting that, because even Satan's not going to really know the day. He's going to know the season like everybody else. The particular day and the hour. Okay, but another reason for that, I believe, is that because time is so heavily encrypted in the scriptures. I mean, listen, Isaac Newton, did I get that right? Isaac Newton, the great scientist, one of the most brilliant minds that ever existed, was a total Kabbalist, spent his whole life, really, his hidden life, studying ancient Jewish texts, people, this is the truth, trying to figure out the time, the day and the hour, the end of the age, all right? I think, you know, it turns out now we can kind of understand he was a little bit way off. Let's hope he was way off, because he's got it way, way into this next millennium. I don't want to wait that long. Personally, I'm grappling with the idea of, do we have 7 more years? You know, is it 10 more years? We got 30 more years? That to me is very distressing, because I'm ready today to wrap this thing up. And a lot of us are ready now. Okay, let's go. Let's get the show on the road. I don't know how much time is left in this last little leg of the journey. But just to be encrypted enough in 2nd Ezra, when he's talking about some of these greater mysteries, and these are mysteries, these are truths. He talks about a week of 7. He talks about 400 years, all in the same context. And if I could find it here, he's giving these numbers of 7 days of a week, 400 years, 2 days. He's all over the place, deliberately, because this information is highly, highly encrypted. So if you're a date setter, whatever. All right, so let me go back to my original point. Esdras is written, to Esdras is, and back to my original point, that whoever wrote second Esdras is following, in my opinion, a very, very apocryphal a very, very apocryphal understanding. All right. They have the keys. They know the deeper mysteries. They're trying to impart knowledge and information to the elect saint for knowledge, for wisdom, for understanding, and for encouragement. The whole point of second Esdras is, and why you could say it could go back to Ezra, the true Ezra Nehemiah at the time of the first temple. I hope I got that right. I hope I didn't say second temple in the beginning. The first destruction of the first temple when they came back from Babylon. Because he's lamenting, he's like, Yahweh, what is up with this? If we're Israel, if we're the apple of your eye, if we're your inheritance, if we're your people, why are you subjecting us to rulership of the heathen nations who are not your people, who do not please you? Like, why? And if you are all powerful, Elohim, why can't you just bring the end now, save us all this suffering and tribulation, and just, in my generation, just wrap it up now. Like, I'm done. I want to go home. Why can't? And so there's this whole dialogue, there's this whole discourse with the angel, with the spirit of wisdom, trying to get to explain from a bigger picture the times and the seasons. So I say you have to get up really high. What I'm going to talk about is the concept of the tribulation, the end of the age, the last days. These are theological concepts, and I don't think Ephraimite Christians have any clue what they're talking about, because they're not using these concepts in their true Hebraic understanding, in their Jewish understanding. Listen, Ephraimite, you were lost to the nations for 2,300 years. We're just coming back in the last generation, many of us, into 30, 25, 10, 5 years of understanding truth, even from the perspective of the two houses. Even Judah has kept it. And believe me, there is a library of works that need to be mastered if you're ever going to get to the level of the spirit of understanding, to be a master sage, to be not only entrusted, but to have the precept by precept foundation in which to understand these great arcane mysteries. Now, that's a fact. I know, and people think that's very elitist for me to say, whatever. So let's go back to this. So, as I said, Esdras was really, I would say, ticked off. I mean, he's like, you got to explain this one to me, Father. Why we have to suffer so much at the hands of these nations. And it says here, very encrypted. See, this is what I mean. Like, just take this one, Ezra 6:3, Ezra 6:9. For Esau is the end of the age, and Jacob is the beginning of the age that follows. Now that's an encrypted understanding, because Esau does not mean, Esau is being used as a code word there. For Esau is the end of this age. Esau is referring to the demonic realms, the evil inclination, Hasatan's rulership, his ability to rule the quote unquote the airways, the god of the heaven, or the lower heavens, the god of this world. He's described all these different things, the cosmocrator. All right, that is all kind of referred to in this code were called Esau. Remember, Esau, I love, Jacob, I hated. You think he's really talking about his literal children? Or Isaac is talking about, no, these are code words for Jacob. Obviously is referring to the righteous remnant, the righteous branch, the righteous planting. All right, this is how these things are being used. But he says, behold, the days are coming. So now it says that Jacob is the beginning of the age that follows. This is what I'm talking about with, you got to understand, the 2 days, the third day, the millennial reign, the Sabbath rest, and then the end of the seventh day, and then there is a complete transformation. We're going into a time of real partial, the first resurrection. At the end of the seventh day, there will be a total resurrection, a second resurrection, and there will also be a total morphing into, a whole new heaven and a new earth, where even time shall be no more. Oh, I have so many thoughts. I'm trying to figure out which rabbit trail, which one would you like me to go down first? Let me finish this. So behold, the days are coming, and it shall be that when I draw near to visit the inhabitants of the earth, when I require from the doers, and when I require from the doers of iniquity the penalty of their iniquity, and when the humiliation of Zion is complete. Now it is my contention. Okay, so here I said, this is Ezra's thing. When are we going to stop being the tail? Last week I thought I wish listen to, because I think it's important understanding. Josephus wrote a book called Against Epion, against this concept that, all the other nations, the Greeks especially, they're so proud of their philosophy and their Aristotle and their Plato. They're stole the intellectual property, the theological understanding of Yahweh Elohim from the Hebrews. That's what happens when you're in disobedience and you become the tail and not the head. People are allowed to steal your intellectual property and use it out there, and you have no recourse, right? I mean, basically that's what's happening right now. But a day is coming when the humiliation of Zion will be complete. Now, it says that he answered me and said, this is all part of the dialogue. You just got to read it. I'm not going to, this one is coming from chapter, oh gosh, where am I even? There's such long chapters. 112. So honestly, what chapter has 107? Chapter 7, 112 says, he answered me and said, this present world is not the end. There's another thing. And the full glory does not abide in it. This is very important. Again, another way of saying, well, this present world, this time of Esau, these 6 days that we've been living through, is not the end. It's not the end all be all. Full glory does not abide in it. Even with the saints, even Yeshua's first coming, even the time of this, the ecclesia, this elect, all these huge peoples being called out of the nations, the grafting together of the two houses, all these things, that's still nothing compared to the full glory that's coming on the 6th day. Now, another spot, it says, he said to me, well, we're getting into, there's a couple more. Okay, it says in verse 30, chapter 7, for this reason the Most High has made not one world, but 2. Now, that's a pretty heavy-duty statement. Where do you put that in the theology? And this is the thing of the binary system, the duality. That This present world is housed, it's sort of in this little time capsule against the backdrop of the world to come. Actually, if you in Jewish, the world to come was created before this present world. And actually, we kind of know that. You could deduce that even just from the story of Genesis on down, Adam being made on the sixth day, the fall happening at that time. So he had made the world to come, really, and this is the point, on the first day. And the present 6,000 years, even the seventh, the whole week, was a construct that we kind of fell into, which is called the Great Tribulation. And I'm going to give you some backdrop for why I would say that. But before I want to do this, I have to talk about time, because again, times and seasons. Time is a creation of the fourth day. Elohim, we know. I mean, this is God 101, that he's beyond space and time, that he is omnipotent and omnipresent. I mean, if I'm going to have a God, he's got to be greater, is the whole point, than everything that we see manifested, all the invisible and invisible parts of this created cosmos, all right? And he is. I mean, this is the theology of ancient Israel, of our Adonai Eloheinu. Okay, this is the whole point. And Kabbalistically, he is called En Sof, which means that he exists, or you could call this another term, is a couple of the code words that are for this kind of, he's called the long face, he's called the ancient of days, he is also called Ayeh Ashur, Ayeh. So he revealed himself to Moses. Look at, I am that I am. I mean, I just am. You know, think about that one. Fry your brain on that one, all right? Before time, before matter, before physicality. I mean, he just is, all right? People, we are created beings. We got a short 70-year, quote-unquote, lifespan. We come into this world, we exit this world. We are no more eternal in this presence than a man on the moon, okay? But our Heavenly Father absolutely reveals himself is Ayeh Ashur, Ayeh. I am that I am. Now, time is a construct. It's a dimension. It's actually a deity. I mean, there's all these concepts around it. It is a living. Nothing that Elohim created is dead. He doesn't create the dead stuff, all right? Dead stuff gets created or comes into being because of really and truly combining things that he didn't make, that can't live because they don't have his life in it. Everything that he made was good, and he put himself in it. His time, his life, which I believe, you know, like they say the atom is the most smallest block of life. Well, no, it's life. It's life. There's an actual entity. There's an actual substance. There's an actual quark in our physics that's called life. Okay? And I don't care how many Higgs boson, you know, or certain they try to, they're never going to break open life. Anyways, the fourth day. When you get into the kinds of the Trinity, okay, this is the point. The 3 days before the fourth day, so let's do the math, 1, 2, 3, and then you got 4. So there were 1, 2, 3 days before you had 4. This is a world, this is a place, this is a theology, this is a dimension, you know, this is the high heavens. This is a realm of Elohim called the mind. See, this is why the Greeks stole this philosophy. And then they try to portray, and this is what irritates the crap out of them, because they are God deniers and God haters. They take him out of the equation. The ones who use it profanely and secularly, actually, there's many, a lot of people. All right, let's just not even go there. There's just so much. Stick to this. Keter, Chokmah, and Bina, which are Hebrew words in your text, these words represent the highest level of Ayeh, Ashur, Ayeh that we could possibly ever know. Like, we're mortal beings doing our best to try to comprehend an infinite Elohim who says he's our father and that we can have relationship with. I believe that, all right? He says on one hand, he's incomprehensible, yes. But on the other hand, he says the things that he's revealed about himself, we can know. So let's not play stupid and let's find out what we can know. And it turns out that the first thing we can really know is understanding, this word bina. Now I'm going to read to you from a text called the Bahir. It is actually says it is one of the oldest, most important, and most carefully preserved of all ancient Kabbalistic texts. Now, for those, if you've been with me, you know that I do read deeply, heavily, and Kabbalistic, Jewish mysticism, the deeper understandings that Judah has. And I will say this, I'm pretty convinced now, that the Essenes, that Kabbalah is nothing more, because Kabbalah is a very modern word. Kabbalah is actually, I think, comes out of I'll say 12th century, I believe. It's a very modern word for a very ancient Hebraic theology, all right? The Essenes were Kabbalists. They understood this, all right? So in other words, don't get tripped up on a word, right? This is what happens. This is what Satan's always trying to do, trigger words. There's a very ancient theology, and the Essenes, it morphed into, this knowledge went, Yeshua took this, he was an Essene of the highest order, let me tell you what. This knowledge was in the early church. Nazareans, Essenes, the pious, these are all Ossians, these are all code words for Qumerites, these are all words for those who really were highly steeped in the level of Sud understanding, mystery level understanding, and it morphed into the church, and it went into, as Kabbalah, the Jews, many of these early believers, let me put it this way, sort of just dissolved into history and into groups. That's why even now you will find this deep knowledge still alive in many pockets of organized, even the Eastern Orthodox have tremendous amounts of this understanding in their doctrines. The Jews still obviously carry forward this knowledge. A lot of the early church fathers have kept, we read them, all right? So, and I absolutely believe that this level of understanding is been carried forward by many remnant, like strains and sects, all these different, 2,000 years. Because Elohim promised that it would be alive and remain unto his coming, that there would still be, and that he said knowledge would increase, that the books would be open. It says right in Ezra, behold, the days are coming, and it shall be that when I draw near to visit the inhabitants of the earth, and when I require from the doers the penalty of their iniquity, the wicked will be judged, the righteous will be rewarded. Zion, the humiliation of Zion will be complete. And when this seal is placed upon the age, when it's done, the seal, that refers to the last trump, when it's done, every single soul that's going to be saved, this is part of the thing he tells Ezra is, look, you got to wait for the spring rains, you got to wait for the fall rains, because I have a harvest in every generation. This is the point. there we know that there's 3 harvest seasons in ancient Israel. There was a spring harvest, a summer harvest, Pentecost, and there's a fall harvest. We're coming into the fall harvest, the end of the age. This is what, and you know, he basically would say, you just got to sit tight, no matter what generation you're in, you got to wait, because there is a designated time. Every soul's got to get born, go through this great tribulation, and then they got to be, you know, so that they can get weighed in the balances and judged and be placed in one of the 2 worlds that he has created. So anyways, it says here, when the seal is about to pass away, and I will show these signs, and the book shall be opened before the firmament, and all shall see it together. This has a lot to do with, we're in a preparation stage, the book's being opened, and ultimately these books are the book of life and the book of death, you know, the death. So in other words, which book are you in? These books are going to be opened. You know, your whole life will have been recorded. You're going to be weighed in the balances, and you're going to be, you know, your book's going to have been written in one book or the other book. That's all kind of parabolically saying. But let me get to my one point here. Oh my gosh. So I'm going to read from this book. The word Reshit, which means in the beginning, Bereshit, the first word of our whole Hebrew text, refers to wisdom. Remember, in the beginning, wisdom. Elohim, now, refers to wisdom, period. Elohim, one of the Hebrew names of Yah, and this is going to help, because let me just say this, you know, people are all over the place with Elohim because it's a plural word, and they don't know what to do with it. You know, is it polytheistic? Are there many gods? Did many gods create us? What's going on here when you have this whole concept of the Shema, you know, Hear, O Israel, Adonai Elohino, Adonai Hachad. He's a unity. He's one God. All right? But this can be explained. This potential paradox or contradiction can be explained. Refers to understanding. Elohim, one of the Hebrew names of God, refers to understanding. Since when we use the word God, we are actually speaking of our understanding of him. All right? So Elohim is the word, and in the whole tree of life and Kabbalistically is related to the Hebrew word Bina, and I'll get into this, because the highest Sephiroth, again, I said this in the Hebrew words, is Keter, Chokmah, and Bina. Chokmah means wisdom, Bina means understanding. In the same verse, Shamayan, which is the word heavens, indicates the next 6 Sephiroth. Now just stick with me if you don't, you know, Sephiroth is an emanation, is a flow, a flux of Elohim, an attribute, an essence, they call it one of his faces. He's a very deep. And for this reason, the word Shamayan is a plural word. And this is because there are many heavens. There's many levels to this thing. Earth is referred to as Malkut, kingship or kingdom. Hence the verse, in the beginning, Elohim created the heavens and the earth. Alludes to the 4 basic levels of creation. There is a whole theology, this is the point of how everything is very categorized, linear. Everything is in sets and subsets. We know this from geometry, which is one of the languages about everything is very organized. Nothing is random and chaotic and all over the place. Something proceeds from something in a very orderly fashion. Nothing is lost. Like, let me put this, Elohim is an unbelievably filing system. He knows where everything is, and nothing gets lost in his system. The word created in this verse remains redundant. And it is because the author answers that the word created indicates that Chokmah or wisdom contains the potential of all that would be brought into existence. See, in the beginning, Elohim spoke. But as you read the rest of the text, it took 6 days. Everything wasn't immediately like manifest. It says on the first day, this happened, the second day, this happened, the third day, this happened, the fourth day, all right? So it's a concept here. It says, before creation, only the infinite being, En Sof, our omnipotent, omnipresent Elohim, existed. And therefore, all was sameness and homogeneity, meaning there was no, he just was. He was. He said, I am. I assure, wait a minute, Aye, assure, Aye, I am that I am. All right? I mean, he is full potential. There's nothing, this is another, he says, but everything existed in him and there was nothing that was made that didn't exist in him. This is how big our, everything is in him. But let's just say at this point in time, not everything is manifested. We don't even exist, right? Human Adam isn't even made till the sixth day. So this is a theology. This is a way of explaining the whole process. People who just don't want to stick, and I'm saying you can't make this up. This has already been established. Abraham had this understanding. Enoch had this understanding. Adam had, see, so what I'm trying to say is that Ephraim, my Christian, stop trying to make it up. Go back to your text, become a student, start at the beginning and read and understand and ask for the spirit of understanding, all right? And I'm going to get to finally explaining what this is. So, however, at the opposite pole, all right, creation, let me just, was sameness and homogeneity. Sameness is therefore the highest concept that the mind can comprehend with regard to the infinite being. And it is therefore the essence of Chokmah wisdom. In other words, what it's saying is like, we just have to wrap our mind around the fact that at one time, Elohim, that he just is that he is, and everything that is in him, and it's all this, he is, all right? This is just a theological concept, the best that we can do. Creation, however, so we're just talking about the creator. Now we're flipping around the coin. We're looking at creation, however, is at the exact opposite pole from the creator. All right? So you have a creator and you have a creation. This is why he gets upset. He said, stop worshiping the creation and stay with me. I'm the creator. There's a big difference, all right? Since the creator gives existence, he gives of himself. Everything is potentiality in him, and he brings it forward in his time and in his season, while creation accepts it. This is why I'm a created being. I just accept his love. I accept his acknowledgement of me. Imagine that. You know my name. I mean, these are concepts. I mean, this is unbelievable. And why we write the great Saint write great psalms about this stuff when you really think and meditate upon it. While creation accepts it, so you have this concept that the creator gives, the creation receives. And this is concept, the giver and the gift. He gives life. That's what he is, all right? Therefore, creation could be brought into existence. Therefore, before creation could be brought into existence, the concept of differentiation had to be brought into being. Now, that's like such a deep statement. This is my thing too, because philosophy, all of us, even my Christians especially, should become philosophers. Because philosophy and theology are absolute sisters, like Aramaic and Hebrew. You can't really have one without the other. You have to understand, we are talking about a philosophy of Elohim that he has given us. A theology and a philosophy. It's just that philosophy, they wanted to keep it as like a secular concept. That's what the Greeks, that's the problem. They gave us this concept of the whole creation and the creator and the created as a philosophy, separate. Like it was some kind of mind game. All right? No. Hebrew, get your inheritance back. It's our theology, our philosophy. We do have the most pure and correct understanding of our Adonai Eloheinu, or our Elohim, that can be had, all right? But the first thing after you establish that there's a creator and there's a creation, right? We got that. But then even before you can understand that there's a creation, you have to bring into existence this concept of differentiation. So in other words, Elohim, who is a complete unity, That's why I love like the mind games. You have to be able to think deep, think paradoxically, take contradictions, think them through. You think those Jews, our brothers, the house of Judah, the older brother was just sitting around all these? No, they think deeply. They meditate deeply. In the Hebrew, especially, those Hebrew letters, those Hebrew vowels, I've been through this, are full, chock full of arcane knowledge and understanding. Okay. The concept of differentiation had to be brought into being. And this is the essence of Bina, or understanding. It is for this reason that the word Bina shares the same root as bein, B-E-I-N, meaning between. And the Talmud states that this understanding refers to understanding one thing from something dissimilar. In other words, there had to be a construct made. Look at how diversified creation is. And when you do the 7 days down, it goes from what they call simplicity to complexity. How Ayeh Asher Aheh, Ayeh, our Elohim who just he is, and everything is in him, all of a sudden actually starts to take what he is in him and to manifest it outward into a creation that can be known, can be enjoyed, and built into that construct is abuse, used and abused. This is all part of the greater storyline. But differentiation is what is really implied in the word Elohim, which makes it plural. And this is why in a lot of the literature and the language, and you have this concept of the male and the female principle, which is nothing more, as I said before, the active and the passive principles. These people in so many other fields understand an active and a passive principle, a yin and a yang, a positive and a negative, an X and an O. This is the foundational process of a binary system of duality that has been set up. This is all part and parcel of the theology that we need to have. This is really Judaism, or this is, I don't want to use the word Judaism because people, anti-Semitic people can't handle this, but our theology 101. All right. Elohim is plural, is pregnant, is because she's pregnant and she is the female now. This is the point. This is the whole typology. Once Elohim establishes a principle or an archetype, he sticks with it. All right. He's not all over the place. So females produce what? Children. They have eggs. This is the point. Look at the female. Take this. Fully pregnant. I think that I read somewhere. Oh my gosh! I think it was like 300,000 eggs. Every female is born at the time here of 300,000 eggs. That's a lot of potentiality there, right? And then by the time she or women become actually marrying age started, it's way, way reduced down. So everything, truth should always echo itself. This is how you know you're in the right path, you're on the straight path, because it's straight. It's not crooked. It doesn't go all over the place. All right, so that's why the female, we're great. Some of our attributes and physiology are actually mirroring and modeling some of the highest concepts and theologies about God. Okay? So you have to have this concept of differentiation because, like I said, an apple's not an orange. A cattle is not a human. A star is different from a moon. And a star is different from a fish. I mean, it's not rocket science here, right? There's huge differentiation in the creation. All right? But if you lose philosophy, if you lose the concept that there is an overarching theology, there is a starting point, and this is another one of the whole Kabbalistic concepts, that Elohim, let's just say he's the master architect, and he decided to create, which he did, a whole manifestation of what's in his brain, right? And even we don't, you got to start somewhere. You got to put your pencil to the paper. I'm an artist. If I'm going to paint anything, I cannot stay removed from that piece of paper forever. At some point, I'm going to have to take a brush to that piece of paper if I'm going to create anything. That's just on a 2D surface. Any writer, you're going to stare at that blank piece of paper until you take your pencil and put it on and make a point, a starting point. This is why philosophy, you got to understand, that's the point. And then this is the next greatest revelation. Another revelation comes of Bina, the difference between Hokmah and Bina. Hokmah is the act of creation, the will. I'm going to create a painting. I've got to take my brush and put it on the paper. Okay, it's not rocket science. That's Hokmah, that's Bina. And inside of me, let's just say, I mean, I'm not God, okay? But on one level, the artist, the writer, those who mimic this process. In my head, I have an image. I have an archetype. I have an idea of what I want to make. And this is the difference, oh gosh, don't preach it, between modern art and the classics, between chaos and order. Elohim is not chaos. He knew exactly what was in his mind's eye, what he was going to make. So he put the point to the paper, which wasn't paper, which is, it gets into, oh my gosh, it's so deep. But he starts, but he makes a circle. He makes a circle. This is, Bina is a circle. In other words, it starts with a point, and that point starts to move around the paper. He's setting up his boundaries. That's why he says he made the heavens and the earth. Actually, what is saying? All the boundaries of this thing. I mean, it's a very, let me put it this way. Elohim himself is limitless and boundless. The creation, and even science will tell you, is not. There's a beginning, there's an end. There are boundaries to this thing. Okay? He made the heavens and the earth. He made a circle. It was all encompassing. And then he began his process of creation, of differentiation with Bina. Because we can understand, see, and this is but we can see the creation. This is why Paul says so eloquently, look at, don't play stupid. You are not going to get to play stupid at the judgment before Elohim, before God, because of the creation. Because any intelligent person, seriously, if you think that the creation just poofed out of nowhere, that there was not intelligence behind it, you are in gross darkness, total denial, and you are a God hater and a God rejecter. I mean, it's just pure logic. Okay, so, but this is what I love about the deeper way, and these are the foundational concepts. If we don't have these foundational concepts, you are like all over the place. You're zooming in and out trying to figure out these deep scriptures that are, you've got to have the foundations. Why it says you've got to build on the sure foundation, okay, of the apostles and prophets. They had this. You know, for a second, think I say these guys didn't have a totally, and I don't care what word, Essene, Kabbalistic, hidden mystery. I mean, this Sud level understanding. Okay, because first of all, this is the point. I say these things over and over. You just don't teach this stuff to children. Children just, that's why we're talking about drink strong wine. We're talking about meat and strong drink. I mean, this is, you got to have a little bit of brain savvy to kind of even begin to understand this stuff. Most children are so centered on them, so they don't have a larger picture that there's really something more than them and their mom and dad and their little house and their street. There's a whole world out there, okay? These things come with maturity and age and understanding. So let me try to finish this. Oh my gosh. This might have to be a couple videos because there's just a lot to cover. So on this level of beginning and wisdom, all that exists first with wisdom is undifferentiated potential. When it enters the realm of Elohim, plural, El. Im is plural. I am is plural in Hebrew. You add El as a name of God. Elohim, a plural God. It's not talking about many gods, people. It's talking about when you enter the realm of Elohim or understanding, it can be differentiated into heaven and earth. In other words, the cosmos becomes from simplicity to complexity, and then, you can study it all you want. Now, I want to go into, because I'm going to have to wrap this up soon, but what I want to get into is, okay, so I'm laying a foundation for something. I'm going into the concept of times and seasons, because if you read Ezra's, I'll just give you my presupposition right now, because one talks about the Great Tribulation, and then it comes a judgment. Okay, now there is an end of the age. We're going to have 6 days. This is really established. I know a lot of people, like, if you're a preterist, you think, 70 AD, yes, you have to understand there have been huge ends of things throughout this process. I mean, there was the end of the known world in the time of Noah and the beginning of a new world, okay? The time of the destruction, there was an end for the house of Judah. It was prophesied to them. They knew they were going to get so basically rebellious, worthless. They would be so infiltrated at their top levels and other things were going to happen prophetically. The time of their great exile was going to come and was going to remain. 70 AD, the end of the temple, and actually it happened in 120. It was a little bit of a process. The removal of the house of Judah from their land and as a sovereign, visible, national house was huge, cataclysmic. I am sure the angels wept on that day, just like they did the day they went into Babylon on and this is what Ezekiel's on the river Kabar. They're just having a huge meltdown, if you want, celestially and physically, because, oh my gosh. But that's not the end of the story, people. If you're a preterist, there's 2 more days. You're not factoring in the 2 days that have to happen were prophesied. Praise Elohim, people like Paul and other great saints, the apostles, understood this. The time to go to the nations and get the rest of the people out of great tribulation was at hand. If you read Ezra, the great tribulation is the whole fact of just being born. We are all born into tribulation. That's what the Father said to Adam, in the garden. It's like, look, all right, the time of bliss is done. I'm sorry, you have entered a time of great tribulation because, your actions now, you've mixed worlds. Oh, it's so deep. You've mixed and you're going to produce death now. The beginning of the season of the 6th day that produced death is known as the time of the Great Tribulation. That is one of, and the thing is, you got to get to understand, there are many levels of meaning. So on one level, the Great Tribulation is literally this whole thing we call life. You're born into it, where there's thorns and there's thistles and there's hardship and there's famine and there's, no water, which is all symbolic ways. It's a mess. And plus that, we have an evil inclination now. So to the Hebrew, when you understand that what gets, the deck is stacked against the believer, the saint, in this great tribulation, all right? And only a very few really come through it. And this is a lot of the parables that Ezra's, in his dialogue with the Lord, it's called Elohim. I think I'm going to that. Is telling him, look at, in one of the parables it says it this way, look at it, again, you just got to be patient. I have a lot of souls out there that I'm trying to save. They're not all born in one generation. I'm trying to say, Ezra, I know you're upset. Chill. Take a back seat. Everything's going to work out. Your people are going to be saved. It's all going to be okay. But I still have a lot of people. And he gives this analogy of a woman who's had 10 children. And he says, okay, look, did she have all 10 children at the same time in her womb? And Ezra goes, or the angel says, look, did she have all 10 at one time? And he's got to say, well, no, she had one at a time. And he goes, yes, exactly. There's every generation has so many souls. You got to go through this whole process. Every generation until the end of the age. All right. She had 10, and each generation, each world was contained. The souls, that tribulation was present for every generation. See, every generation thinks they're in great, why so many the last days or the great tribulation? Because it is. It's great tribulation. And few that are saved through it. But at the end, it will all be done. Every soul will have cycled through. Everyone whose name is in the book of life is there. It's good. It's the end. We can do this thing. We go into the time of judgment. All right. So my premise is the millennial rest. Well, there's two worlds. I'm going to get into this next time because I have a sneaky suspicion that there's going to be, again, two realities. But this time, during the millennial rest, we will be at rest and we will be manifest. We will have an eternal, those who are alive and remain will be changed, and those who are dead will be resurrected. The first resurrection, all those at the moment will be given their immortal robes to be robe clothed. We will be clothed with immortality. For us, we're good to go from then on. And we will be living in this earth realm. And it will be very apparent to those who didn't make that grade, that cut, because it says that people will be dying and being born. That's the second reality during that time. So this is a very deep theological thing, and I'll pick up on that. But what I want to get to before we get there, I have to give something really, so much backdrop. This concept of, there's so many numbers used in scriptures, 3, the Trinity, let's say 3 and 7. Time was made on the 4th day. We know at the end of the 7th day, at the very end, we know that time will be no more in the new heaven and the new earth, where there is no time, there's no sun, there's no moon. There's so much part of this construct that's not there, all right? It's all new. But numbers, I just have to, because it's so, this is how deep, I love the mind. You can't beat this, how they parse this out, and this is truth. Why there are 10 emanations, this is, and this is why it says in some literature, there's 10, not 9, 10, not 11. Numbers is one of the languages of Elohim. 10 is a decade, is the first perfect number, decade. But it's made, components are made up. If you add up 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4, you get 10. Okay, that's one of the reasons. It's because substance. So 1 is everything. And in these are coded deep. So that's why 1 is such an important number, 2 is an important number, 3 is an important number, and 4 is an important number. And you add them all together and you get 10. Okay, decade, a concept of the fullness of Elohim that we can understand. Now, why they say that wisdom, on the level of wisdom and beginning, okay, understanding, all right, how do I go to this? One of the things that has to be understood is that all of these, and he made the heavens and the earth, all right? Now, we can only see the visible. I think they say we see it the third heaven on a beautiful starry night. You can see up to, but there's many heavens. There are 7 heavens, all right? And then in the throne room, then you have a throne room above it. This is some of the theology. But what I'm trying to say is that there's something about this, always this number 7, the lower 7 Sephiroth, all right? And then there's the 3 upper Sephiroth. The upper Sephiroth, wisdom, and, okay, so let's go Keter, Chokmah, Bina, and wisdom and understanding. They are beyond the 7. They're higher than the 7. So what I'm saying is the way they are encoding a lot of this theology, if you ever think of it, the first day, the second day, and the third day, time was not made till the 4th day. 4 is a very important number. 4 is a word, contains all, is another code word for all of the lower 7, all of the realms of the creation that really have visible manifestation. Even though many of it is invisible to us, it's not invisible to the angels or to other entities that are more celestial and live in these higher realms. Does that make sense? You have to understand something. All right, we're in the lowest level, but there's many levels above us. There things are going on. But in the lower 7, so you have this concept of 4 sometimes is a word that is used coded for all the lower 7. That's why you get the 4 elements, the 4 winds. They use the word 4 because it's referring to. But time is in the lower 7 on the 4th day. The first 3 days, what he made and what was functioning, if you really study it out, you have spirit, you have wisdom, you have Elohim, you have spirit, you have the upper Trinity who are above and outside of and not influenced by time or a lot of the lower creation. This is something, because you'll never understand ancient theologies like, again, the Hindus and all these people who have stolen bits and pieces of our Hebraic intellectual understanding of Elohim. That's why the 7 stars, the 7 days of the week, a lot of this 7 keeps appearing. Is, you got 7 elements, you got 7 mountains, you've got 7, the 7 spirits. There's so much with the word because, and it's all referring to this concept of the lower 7. So this is a very important concept to have to understand. So, but what I'm trying to do is make this distinction. Most Christians, we've been disconnected from the 10, all right? We only think there's the 3. We think there's the Trinity, but we don't really understand what we're talking about when we're talking about the Trinity, which is the Father, the Mother, and the Son, really, this concept. That's one of the words, the encrypted to this diversity, and the lower 7. And a lot of ancient cultures revolve around this concept of the 7, and it would behoove us, we could understand and we could try to decipher a lot of this stuff if we would just kind of get on this page. Because time is a construct that belongs to the lower 7. So on the 4th day, when he made the sun, the moon, and the stars, and he started the revolving, the Mazzaroth, the circle, the sphere that keeps going around and around and around, that is all knowledge that much of all of the ancient cultures and religions and things were building on, because that's what they understood. So I hope that made sense. And it's all out of the Tree of Life, which is one of the most ancient, because let me just say, the Tree of Life is pre-Moses, because before you had a nation, and this whole group of Levitical priests keeping on, you had a bloodline. It's time. You just got to know where you are. It's very important. Geography, and time has geography, believe it or not. So I hope I wasn't too much all over the place. I'm trying to lay a foundation because of the times and the seasons. But all I can say is we definitely are living in the last days before the 3rd day, the last hours. You need to get oil in your lamp. You need to be ready. You need to be Torah keeping. You need to be focused on what is coming. Because if you're not, oh my gosh, you're just going to be blown out of the water. Sorry. So I didn't write the book, but I love it. So on that note, shalom, blessings, and I will see you again.